The Krell Dominion had conquered 17 star systems. The Valorians had subjugated 12. The Shannar Collective controlled 43 planets of precious minerals and rare biologics. And the Vel'Shanar Empire, well, they simply believed they owned everything within the light of 1,000 suns. But none of them had ever encountered humans on the battlefield. Commander Syva Thren stood at the observation window of her diplomatic vessel, watching the small blue-green marble suspended in the darkness of space. Earth, a world barely 2 centuries from achieving interstellar flight. A species so young, so fragile in comparison to the stellar powers around them, that the Krell Dominion had almost forgotten to send a conquest fleet at all. She was a Vel'Shanar, a species distinguished by their obsidian skin that seemed to absorb light itself, their 4 arms each capable of wielding weapons with precision, and an intellect honed by 5,000 years of galactic supremacy. Standing nearly 3 meters tall, Commander Thren had personally overseen the subjugation of the Aurelian Confederacy. She had negotiated the absorption of the Khorne Syndicate. She had watched 1,000 alien species kneel before the might of their warships and the inexorable logic of their military doctrine. And she had read the reports about human warriors with something between pity and amusement. "The humans have mobilized a defense force," said Kes, her tactical officer, his voice carrying the whistling undertones of the Vel'Shanar tongue. "Their ships are... well, Commander, they are remarkably fragile." Syva's mandibles curved into what her people called a smile. "Show me." The holographic display illuminated, and she found herself staring at crude, blocky vessels, nothing like the elegant, geometric precision of Vel'Shanar warships. They were visibly dented, patched. Some of them appeared to be held together by sheer force of will and what the humans called duct tape. "Their defensive capabilities are negligible," Kes continued. "Their armor plating is less than 1/10 of standard military-grade specifications. Their weapon systems are at least 2 generations behind our current technology. The odds of human resistance causing more than a 15% loss to our force is..." He paused, consulting the data streams flowing across his multiple eyes. "Is statistically insignificant." "Then why?" Syva asked quietly. "Do they continue to send ships to meet us?" There was a silence. Below, on that impossibly fragile world, something was stirring in the hearts of those who would defend it. The first confrontation came at the Kepler Station, a human research outpost they'd established around a dying star 3 light-years from Earth. It was a signal, a line in the sand, a statement that said, "This far and no further." The Vel'Shanar attack was, by their standards, restrained, merely overwhelming. 43 warships, equipped with weapons that could reduce a planet's surface to molten slag in a matter of hours. Commanded by Sub-Commander Voltax, a Vel'Shanar with 3 centuries of military experience and a perfect record of conquest. The human response was 14 ships, smaller, weaker, most of them carrying scientists, not soldiers. "They're sending their supply vessels," Kes reported, almost laughing. That strange, clicking sound the Vel'Shanar made when truly amused. "Look at their weapon configurations. These are cargo transports retrofitted with weaponry." Syva watched as the human fleet emerged from behind the station's gravitational shadow. And she saw something that would haunt her for the rest of her existence. They weren't trying to run. They weren't trying to hide. They had positioned themselves directly between the Vel'Shanar fleet and Kepler Station. "Sub-Commander Voltax is opening communications," Kes said. They're demanding we stand down? They claim we have no legal right to occupy the station." Syva's multiple eyes narrowed. "They're negotiating. They're delaying," Kes corrected. "No doubt attempting to evacuate their people. A logical but ultimately futile effort." The Vel'Shanar Dominion did not negotiate. Their law was written in the language of supremacy, their right derived from strength. They gave one chance for surrender, a courtesy extended to all species, a single moment to acknowledge the inevitable. Sub-Commander Voltax transmitted the standard demand, and Captain James Mitchell, a human with graying hair, 40 years of military service, and a heart that had never known surrender, transmitted his reply. "We decline." What happened next would be studied in military academies across the galaxy for 10,000 years. The human fleet opened fire, not in a tactical withdrawal, not in a fighting retreat designed to buy time for evacuation, but in a coordinated, almost ceremonial assault. They fired everything they had, sacrificing the element of surprise for maximum psychological impact. Their weapons, those crude, simple weapons, streaked toward the Vel'Shanar ships in brilliant, desperate traceries of light. 14 ships, 43 enemies. The math was simple. What was not simple was understanding why. The first human vessel took 3 direct hits from Vel'Shanar plasma cannons. It should have disintegrated. Instead, its captain, a woman named Syva Thren, performed an evasive maneuver that no computer model had ever suggested could work. She burned her ship's reactors beyond safe limits, her engines screaming with the stress of it, and somehow, she threaded the gap between 2 Vel'Shanar dreadnoughts. And as she passed through, her weapons found a vulnerability in their formation. A critical vulnerability. What are they doing? Syva breathed. She realized, watching from the safety of the observation window, that the humans weren't fighting to win. They were fighting to matter, to ensure that their sacrifice meant something, to buy the evacuation of their people with every second of defiance they could purchase with their own lives. Captain Mitchell's flagship took the brunt of the second volley. The shields collapsed. Its armor began to fail. And instead of surrendering, instead of breaking formation and fleeing in the hope of individual escape, Mitchell transmitted a single message to his fleet. Protect the station. That's the mission. He turned his dying ship directly into the path of an incoming strike designed to obliterate the station's primary command center. The human vessel exploded, its destruction a brilliant flower of light and plasma and noble defiance. But the station stood. Commander Syva watched as the tactical display updated. Watched as human ships continued to fight not for victory, a thing they could never achieve, but for meaning, for purpose, for the lives of their people. One by one, they fell. The human fleet was cut to pieces, reduced to scrap and silence and the cold void between stars. Sub-Commander Voltax had, as predicted, achieved total victory with less than 10% losses. But when Syva looked at the data, when she examined the tactical records of what had transpired in those final moments, she saw something her 5,000 years of civilization had not prepared her for. 14 humans had killed 15 Vel'Shanar warships. 14 inferior vessels, piloted by beings of shorter lifespans and less training, had inflicted more damage on a Vel'Shanar battle group than any species in recorded history. How? Kes whispered. How is this possible? Our weapons are superior. Our crews are trained. Our doctrine is proven. But Syva understood. Because she had watched the records, Captain Mitchell's final transmission, recorded and transmitted to the Vel'Shanar fleet as a last act of defiance. And in that transmission, he was not afraid. He was not asking for mercy. He was not raging against the darkness. He was smiling. They fought not because they could win, Syva said slowly, the realization settling into her mind like the weight of 1,000 worlds. They fought because some things are worth dying for. She looked at her tactical officer, at his shocked expression, at the incomprehension in his multiple eyes. Stand down the attack fleet. Commander, Kes seemed paralyzed. We have achieved near total victory. The station is vulnerable. Earth itself lies defenseless. No, Syva said, and her voice carried the weight of genuine revelation. They are not defenseless. That is what I have come to understand. A species that will stand before overwhelming force, not for the sake of victory, but for the sake of meaning. Such a species can never truly be defeated. She turned from the observation window, her forearms settling into a posture of profound respect. Send this message to the human vessels. Tell them that the Vel'Shanar Dominion recognizes their right to sovereignty. Tell them that we will withdraw. And tell them, she paused, searching for words that could bridge the vast gulf between 5,000 years of supremacy and the sudden understanding of something greater than mere power. Tell them that we were wrong. In the days that followed, Commander Syva met with the survivors of the human fleet. Captain Chen, her ship crippled but her spirit unbroken. Commander Rodriguez, who had given up his vessel's escape pods so that junior officers could evacuate their families from Kepler Station. And in their eyes, she saw something the Vel'Shanar had spent 5,000 years acquiring weapons and territory and power to defend. Something they had forgotten to cultivate in themselves. They saw hope. When Syva returned to her vessel, she did something her people had not done in 3 centuries. She requested permission to study human culture, to understand the species that had taught her in a single battle what no amount of conquered territory could teach her about what made a civilization worth preserving. The Kepler Station was not evacuated. It was protected, and the news spread throughout the galaxy like a shockwave. The Vel'Shanar had retreated, not from weakness, not from fear of the humans' crude weapons or limited technology, but from the profound understanding that they had been confronted by something rarer and more valuable than any resource they could extract from 1,000 conquered worlds. They had met a species that understood the highest purpose of consciousness itself, the ability to sacrifice for others, to face death not with acceptance or despair, but with meaning, to declare in the final moment before the abyss that their lives mattered, that they had mattered. The Krell Dominion heard the news and grew cautious. The Valorians halted their expansion toward human space. Even the Shannar Collective sent tentative diplomatic overtures, because somewhere in the vast, cold darkness between the stars, word had spread. The humans would fight, not always to win, but always with a fire in their hearts that no amount of superior firepower could extinguish. And in the eyes of the galaxy's peoples, those ancient, weary civilizations who had lost the capacity to believe in anything beyond survival, that made them something far more dangerous than any weapon. It made them free. Commander Syva stood in her private quarters, watching the blue marble of Earth suspended in the eternal night. And for the first time in 5,000 years of Vel'Shanar history, her people did something they had never done before. They saw another species, not as an obstacle to be overcome or a resource to be exploited, but as teachers. Teachers of a lesson that could not be learned in 1,000 years of study, but only through witnessing it firsthand. The lesson that true strength is not measured in weapons or armor or military doctrine. True strength is the courage to face the darkness and declare, even if no one is listening, even if the cause seems lost, even if the night swallows you whole, I choose to matter. My life has value, and I will spend it on something greater than myself. Because that, you see, is something the entire galaxy had forgotten, until humanity reminded them. And for the first time, the galaxy understood what it truly meant to be human. If the story moved you, subscribe for more tales of human courage from the stars. Until next time, remember, we are the species that defies the darkness, not because we always win, but because we always choose to stand.